Well, I just got back from the new animated Garfield movie by Sony Pictures, and it was one of the worst movie experiences I've ever had. And not to say that it was the worst movie I've ever seen. I mean, it wasn't very good, but what made this even more annoying was what happened during the credits, but more on that towards the end of this video. I was looking forward to this movie because it was the directing return of Mark Dindal, who directed two great animated movies that I love, the underrated Cats Don't Dance and the hilarious Emperor's New Groove. He also directed Chicken Little, but let's ignore that. So after watching Garfield, it's safe to assume that Dindal did a lot better when he only did 2D animated films, because while Cats Don't Dance and Emperor's New Groove didn't sell very well, they at least reviewed decently and have strong followings. Chicken Little, on the other hand, that's considered by many to be one of the most hated and disconnected Disney movies of all time, and it's sad to say that Garfield is very similar in a way. Where Chicken Little felt too disconnected from the traditional feeling of a Disney movie, the Garfield movie disconnects the characters from their cynical slice-of-life comic roots. It really feels like Garfield was meant to be a movie about a cat and his supposed deadbeat father being tangled up in a dairy heist, and out of nowhere Sony decided they wanted Garfield and Odie to be shoehorned as the main characters. It's like the Star Fox Adventures of animated movies, starting off as one thing and drastically transforming into something else with another IP shoved in as the main character. At least Star Fox Adventures was arguably enjoyable, though. The only really good thing I have to say about this is that the animation was pretty decent and very expressive, but it's nothing very standout from the hundreds of other CGI movies from the past decade. I hate to even say that even the live-action movies of Garfield understood the source material better, and at least they hired an actor who actually voiced the character very well. Now, I don't mind Chris Pratt. I don't hate him as much as others do. For some reason, a lot of people hate it whenever a new movie gets announced and they say Chris Pratt will be the character, and I thought he even did a passable job as Mario in the Mario movie, despite being very skeptical at first. But he did not work as Garfield. He didn't even try sounding like a lazy, cynical cat who just wants to sleep and eat all day. Not only does the voice not work, but even the character doesn't work. Garfield is just too fast-paced in this movie. The movie can't decide who Garfield is supposed to be. The beginning of the movie tries establishing faithfully to the source material, and tries showing that Garfield is a lazy cat who just wants to eat all day, but as soon as the movie's conflict kicks in within the first 10 minutes, Garfield is suddenly moving and talking a lot faster throughout. It's just way too fast-paced and zany, and it's hard to take him seriously when he claims he'd rather be at home laying around and eating all day when his actions say otherwise. The movie tries throwing in a few nods of the comics, but they're only brief cameos, so yeah, it's like this just doesn't feel like a Garfield story. It doesn't feel like anything that would even be like in the animated series either. It just feels so distant from what makes Garfield Garfield. The only thing that really stays true to the character numerous times in the movie is that he likes to eat food, especially lasagna, and that's about it. I mean, they establish early on in the movie that he hates Mondays, but it's like, does that carry on throughout the film? Not really. He's also way too chummy with Odie in this movie, where he mostly couldn't stand Odie in the comics, but puts up with him because he knows his owner John won't like it if anything bad happened to Odie. So you won't see Garfield kicking Odie off a table or mocking his intelligence in this film. The film opens up with a boring scene of Garfield ordering food with a smartphone as it gets delivered by drones. Quit trying to shoehorn your products and sponsors into your film, Sony. IGN was not kidding when they gave this film a bad review and said it has so much product placement, smartphone jokes, if you could even call it that, because there's nothing funny in this movie at all. Sony is the worst when it comes to product placements, so after that long, boring, and unfunny joke, Garfield begins narrating the story of his beginnings. Too bad the trailer already gave it away. So we see Garfield as a kitten supposedly being abandoned in an alley by his supposed deadbeat father, Vic, voiced by Samuel Jackson. Now, I'm just going to say it. I guessed right away what they were going to do with this character. So throughout the movie, we see Garfield claiming that his dad abandoned him, and he abandons anyone he gets in touch with. And so we see how at the beginning, the dad is leaving Garfield, and he's telling him to wait for him to come back. Despite that, we saw how not long after, Garfield did not wait very long at all, as he immediately walks away towards an Italian restaurant, where he meets a lonely John who adopts him. So as soon as Garfield left, I knew exactly where this movie was going. I knew there was eventually going to be a heart-to-heart moment between Garfield and Vic where Garfield confronts his dad about abandoning him, only for Vic to reveal that he never left him. It's later revealed in the movie, during what's honestly the only good part of the movie. Back in the past, when Vic left Garfield, he was actually leaving to find food for him, because of course they were struggling on the streets as stray cats. And so we see how his dad was working hard to just find a little bit of scrap of food to give to Garfield. And so as soon as he finally finds a sardine in a trash can, he heads back only to find that Garfield is gone. I mean, I knew this was going to happen because, like I said, Garfield did not wait long at all. And so I knew they were going to reveal, oh no, the dad didn't abandon Garfield. Garfield left himself. And so Vic searches everywhere until he finds Garfield with John, and he tears up with a smile on his face, seeing how much happier Garfield is with John, compared to roughing it out in the streets. And so Vic had to make the hard choice to let Garfield go. It's honestly a very emotional scene, but it's just too bad that it's stuck in such a mess of a movie. Like, if this were in a much better movie, it's like, oh god, it's such a good scene that it just does not belong in this movie. This movie doesn't deserve this scene. That's just the best way to put it. This movie just feels too disjointed, with too much going on, and none of it coming together very well. There are so many points where you almost think the movie is going to flat out forget a point it introduced. I mean, it tries resolving things eventually, but it doesn't feel deserved or earned when it happens. It just feels like one of those movies where too many Deus Ex Machinas come out of nowhere and keep the plot going, or keep the plot constantly getting halted. You know, it's just a kind of a annoying movie to get through at times. So this really does feel like one of those too many cook kind of movies, where none of the writers or producers could agree on how the movie should go. And you could tell by the end credits that this had a lot of executive producers. You know how before movies start, you see the logos of the studios involved in making the film? This film has some of the longest lists of studios involved I've ever seen at the beginning of an animated film. There's maybe 4 or 5 different studios at the beginning before the movie even started. It's like, geesh, right when you think the movie's about to get started, it's like another logo appears. It's just like that Family Guy skit where Peter thinks the movie's about to start and then he's disappointed because it's another one of those long intros for the studios. That's what it was. That's what this movie felt like. So most of the first 10 minutes focuses on Garfield recapping how his life basically is. It's basically a homage to the comics and recreating iconic gags and tropes, but in CGI. So then out of nowhere, 2 dog henchmen kidnap Garfield and Odie. So these are kind of like the, I wouldn't say bumbling sidekicks, they're just the sidekick henchmen to the main villain throughout the movie, and they honestly weren't that bad. Like, I thought they were going to be real annoying characters, and they were okay, but I wouldn't say they were too memorable, but at least they weren't annoying. So the 2 henchmen dogs were hired by some maniacal cat villainess. I can't even remember her name. I mean, that's a sad thing. It's sad how out of all the new characters introduced, the only one I can remember is Vic, Garfield's dad, who they tried giving the impression that Garfield's dad is going to be a real deadbeat, and surprisingly, that's far from the truth when you actually see the movie. So Vic was one of the more likable characters of the film. So she basically was the one responsible for having Garfield and Odie kidnapped out of nowhere. So, again, out of nowhere, Vic comes in and tries saving Garfield and Odie, but he gets caught as well. The villain reveals herself and how she used to be partners with Vic in stealing milk from a popular dairy farm, until Vic bailed on her, leaving her to get taken to the pound where she met her 2 dog henchmen who broke her out. She wants Vic to make it up to her by stealing ounces of milk that equal up to the amount of days she was locked up, and she forces Garfield and Odie to go with Vic. So the 3 heroes are forced to break into the dairy farm, which has now been taken over and turned into a tourist attraction with high-tech security. Like, the message this movie's trying to get about, corrupt businesses taking over businesses and sucking all the life out of it and not showing concern or care for the animals that live there. I really don't think this is the best kind of movie being released under Sony. It just makes them look like complete hypocrites. But, so while Garfield acts like a jerk to his dad throughout the movie, there's also a subplot about a former bull mascot from the dairy farm trying to reunite with his girlfriend who is still trapped as a petting zoo exhibit. And so the bull assists in coaching the heist in exchange for his girlfriend's rescue. So I think that's all I'm really going to say about this movie. I'm not going to spoil anything further or say how it ends. But it's a family film, so you know it's gonna have some kind of lighthearted ending. No matter how bad things get, it's all gonna work out in the end. So, but yeah, I will admit though, the scenes between Garfield and his dad when they're no longer bickering, they are actually pretty good. His dad was a very likable character. I just don't feel like this plot worked as a Garfield movie. It's like if this were any other movie with another character, yeah, it would have been a good father-son story. But for a Garfield movie, it just feels out of place. So overall, the movie was pretty basic. The only part that made the audience laugh was the part where Garfield gets a bath and becomes poofy. And this was a scene that was already given away in the trailer. So I didn't even laugh at that part. But for a movie that's about an hour and a half long, it's sad that that's the only time I heard a word come out of anyone from the audience. The film was overall a bore. Not an unbearable or annoying bore, just a rather forgettable one. Now, to go back to why this was one of the worst theater experiences I've ever had, it goes to, before I went to see the movie, I heard there was an end credit scene that teases a sequel, so I tried sitting through till the end of the credits so I could see the ending scene. But one of the workers came in and asked me to leave because he has to clean the theater. I said, but the movie isn't over yet. I heard there was an end credit scene and I would like to watch it. The worker didn't care. He didn't care that I paid to see this movie. He told me to leave. I snapped and said, fine, whatever. What do you think I pay for? And I stormed out. That was the worst treatment I've ever received at any movie theater. I even left a comment on the theater's Facebook page describing my terrible experience. Of course, just like any other business, they deleted my comment, but on the bright side, they did send me a private message on Messenger. They apologized for the bad experience. They claimed I was right and I had every right to see the movie to the very end. They claimed that the worker there was new and he should have known better. And so they offered me a free movie pass the next time I go there. So I honestly don't know how that works because they didn't give me like a serial code or anything. So what am I supposed to do? Pull out my phone with the text message I just received and claim I got a free pass or something? I don't know. If so, I hope they buy it. But so I do appreciate the free movie pass, but I still think it was very lousy of them to delete my complaint like it never happened. I'm tired of companies not owning up to their mistakes and trying to act like they have a perfect reputation when, any customer knows that that's far from the truth. Look, I even owned up to what I did. I didn't try sugarcoating that I yelled before leaving. Like, I didn't scream out top of my voice, but I at least didn't try hiding that, yeah, I was annoyed when they kicked me out. I just wanted to see the movie to the end and they wouldn't let me. So, yeah, I got frustrated. I said, fine, whatever, before I stormed out. But, I owned up to what I did in response. I didn't try sugarcoating my experience to make myself look better or make the worker sound worse. I said it exactly the way it happened, and I tried being as respectful as I could, and they deleted my post anyways. But yeah, the Garfield movie was a mediocre movie overall. I would not recommend it. 4 out of 10. Well, that's all I have to show for now. Thank you for watching. See you next time, and have a great day.